when we talk about foster children, we often don't tend to include those who are in the gray area between being fully in the system and moving into their adult lives. Maurita McCorkle has a heart for these kids and has been spending her time for years helping them individually and using what she's learned to try to piece together a program to support them into a successful adulthood. Find out more about her experience and her hopes for the future, this time on Adoption Uncovered. Hello, and if you could tell me who you are and how you're connected to foster care.
Hey there, Charlene. My name's Maurita McCorkle, and I have been a foster parent for 25 years here in the state of North Carolina. I have a passion for young adults that age out of foster care, and that is my primary focus today. I have a nonprofit called In Our Shoes, and we help support and provide solutions for young adults aging out of foster care.
Well, I would love to hear more about that. Can you tell me some of the interactions you've had with these foster kids and what has it been like
Oh,
for you?
wow. Well, I've had over 80 kids in the 25 years that I have been a foster parent. So I have lots of stories I can tell. One story that I absolutely adore telling is this little boy. He was 6 years old. He used to come and spend weekends with me. When I first started foster care, I did respite care, which is just providing short-term care for families. And so he'd come and spend time with me. And there was one Friday night he was coming and I had to work late. And so he came to the office and he doodled on my whiteboard and did some other coloring and stuff like that at the desk. And he was so good. And when we got in the car to go home, I was like, Didi, you have been such a good boy. I said, I'm going to let you choose where we want to go to eat tonight. And so he sat in the back and he's like thinking for a minute. He's like, pizza. I want pizza. And I said, well, pizza it is. And so we continued on our journey heading to go get some pizza. And then all of a sudden I hear from the back, Miss Marita. And I said, yes. He says, you make my heart feel good.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
that is what it's about is helping those kids. A lot of people that think about doing foster parenting often say two things. I couldn't give up the kids, my heart couldn't take it. And, my response to that is that I'm willing to get my heart broken in order to mend theirs. And sometimes that's for a short season, sometimes it's for longer. Um, I've adopted two kids. They're now 27 and 28, which is just so hard to believe that they are that old. Because I'm only, 32, right?
Right.
Been doing it for
Mhm.
25 years and I'm
Yeah.
32. But yeah, so yeah, I adopted Kiera and Tyler when they were 14 and 16. And that's about the time that I got into starting to help with the teenagers.
When you see them and they're teenagers and they're aging out, what are some of the biggest things that you feel like
Mhm.
needs attention?
So here in the United States, we have over 400,000 kids in the foster care system. 600,000 kids will come through the system within the year. So you have 600,000 kids that come in and out of the system, but on average daily, we have around 400,000 kids. And once they age out, 65% of our kids that age out of foster care end up in homeless shelters or prison within their first year. And that has a lot to do with the instability that we have created for the kids. They have nothing. When they turn 18, we give them a bag of their belongings and say good luck and expect them to survive. Now, there's been a lot of changes that have been done in the system. For instance, we have a stipend that the kids can have now until they're 23 or 25 years old. It's in the process of being changed. And it used to be 21. And that gives them a little bit like $600, $700 a month to help support them. But it's not enough. It's not enough to sustain anything. And they're just not taught. They're not taught how to manage their money. They're not provided housing, safe housing, comfortable housing, steady housing, anything like that. So that's a huge factor. And then, of course, prison, they end up in prison simply because of not having anything else to do. So a lot of them are on the streets and, they steal. So it's not typically for major things, but minor things. I have a young man in prison right now who he stole $300 and he's been in prison for, gosh, well over 120 days now for $300. It's just ridiculous. Um, we just don't do a good job of taking care of the young adults and helping them to survive. And so I, we also end up, there's another statistic that 50% of the kids that age out of foster care end up having babies within their first year. And the majority of those babies end up right back in the system, repeating the cycle over and over and over again. And so if you look at the families that often their kids are taken into foster care, I think it's 60% or something like that are because of poverty. It's not because of abuse, neglect, or anything severe. It's usually because of poverty. And we need to change things so that we can address those. I know there's a lot of things that are taking place today to try to address providing solutions to those families rather than taking the kids away from them. But in my opinion, one of the things that we could do as well is focus on these young adults that are coming out of the system and trying to create a program that provides stability.
Marita's idea begins with a lot of support for those aging out of foster care and then carefully pulls back as the young adults find more success navigating adulthood on their own.
There's a lot of new programs that are also a lot of new nonprofits, excuse me, popping up. And they are doing a great job trying to provide housing and case management for this population. But it's my opinion and my experience that we need more of a normalization type of process for our young adults. And what I mean by that is, excuse me, is our kids, they don't want to be a statistic. They don't want to be a number. They don't want to be monitored with every step they take and every move. They want to be able to make their own decisions. They want to be coached. They want to be helped. Um, but they want to be normal. They want to be a normal person in our society. So my vision is to create housing that is staged to them being independent. And what I mean by that is, today we often put them out into apartment complex or a thing like that, like under Section 8 housing, which is for lower income housing. And those housing vouchers only have a 1 to 2 year period that they're valid. And our young adults often don't know that it's only 1 to 2 years. So they end up after that 1 to 2 years being homeless because they didn't plan for it. They get told at the last minute and they didn't plan for it. And so instead of doing these types of vouchers, my suggestion is that we do more of a stepped approach where a young adult is coming out of the system at the age of 18. They come into our program and they move into a place of their choice. They could move in with a family member, they could move in to a university, they could move into their own apartment, they could move in with a friend, wherever they want to. And we help support them 100% for the first like 3 months of them being out of the system. And what that does is it helps us to kind of develop a team around them, not a team that's there to check off the yeses and the nos of what they've done, but a team that's there to support them and help to coach them, and that they're leading the team, not the team leading that person. And that they have the ability to get the funding that they need, whether it be a stable job, whether it be the making sure we've got them on the stipend, whatever that income would be. After that, like 3 month period, then we find community support for them. And that community support, the goal would be for them to be a community support for the next 5 to 7 years. It takes a little bit of time. They usually aren't able to really be independently on their own until they're 27, 28 years old. Because you think about 45% of our kids don't even have their high school diploma. So we've got to finish getting their diploma. The goal would be to hopefully get them into some sort of education, whether it be a certificate, whatever the case may be, to help them to get the education they need, then vocation and working on certain things. And so in that first probably 2 years, my recommendation would be that we get community support to cover 75% of their living expenses. So let's say it costs them $1,200 to live in an apartment. Our community would support them $900 a month. The young adult is responsible for $300 a month. After that 2 year period, 1 to 2 year period, you kind of evaluate their goals, set where they are, see what's going on and how they're doing. And then let's move to a 50-50, where they're responsible for 50, community for 50. And then obviously the next step would be they're responsible for 75%, community responsible for 25%. That way we're kind of staging them into that responsibility and helping them grow into that. And hopefully it creates a successful solution rather than one that they constantly are depending on social services or depending on social security or whatever those incomes are. We're helping them to be able to be stable for themselves, providing for themselves. So that's kind of what my vision is from that standpoint of housing and trying to help the young adults. The other thing that I really think we need to do is develop teams. As I said, my mission statement is to develop solutions for young adults aging out of foster care. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to pull together like 5 teams. One team that really addresses housing. So it could be a team that's made up of real estate people, investors, whoever, that they're working together to try to find housing within our area or even without in the United States. It doesn't have to necessarily be that they're living here. But we find housing solutions for the young adults. The next is education, working with our education systems, coming together to try to help build solutions. Now we pay for the kids' education here in North Carolina. However, a lot of times they don't know and they don't know how to access it. So how do we help them to start to access it better? Then we have vocational, maybe starting to get a team of people to get internships that our kids could serve on, or connecting them with job coaches to help them, or different things like that. What are some solutions we could come together with on that? Life skills is another one. Our kids really need to learn how to budget. They need to learn how to cook. They need to learn how to do laundry. They need to learn how to keep house. They need to learn how to, I can name a whole gamut full of stuff, how to take care of a car, even. And so, what are some life skills that we can help to wrap around and some ways we could build that? And so, the last one that I really feel that we need is more in regard to healthcare. Healthcare is a really, really hard place for our young adults to navigate with Medicaid, and we can put teams together to help address the Medicaid issues that they have.
One of the reasons Maria has such a heart for this population is that she has seen them go through so much. Like this story she tells of one young woman she had in her care.
This is what got me really into being passionate about the young adults that age out of foster care. So my daughter Jody, on the day of her 18th birthday, she showed up to the door at her foster family with her bags packed. After having months of discussion what they were going to do to help her and her 2 boys. She
Oh
had
my
two
gosh.
kids while she was in foster care, and they
Wow.
removed her from her 2 boys and moved her to a different home, keeping her boys. And the first place that she got put didn't work. Then she came with me, and it was very difficult even to motivate her to get out of bed. She was so traumatized over being removed from her 2 boys that I couldn't. We tried school, we tried therapy, we tried getting her a job, I tried everything I could. And I only had a 4 month period to do this in. And at that 4 months, we had to go to court for them to review her continuing on that CARS agreement. And in order for her to continue on the CARS agreement, she either had to have a job or be in school. And like I said, we were challenged with both. And so they discontinued her CARS agreement at court that day. We returned home to my social worker standing at my door, who had removed the other kids in my home and told me I had the option of keeping Jody or getting my other kids back.
Wow.
I was backed into a corner of having to put Jody into a homeless shelter. in order for the consequences not to be on my other kids that were with me at the time.
Wow.
So it was a hard place, but I started realizing how I just was wrong how she was treated all the way around. The boys shouldn't have been removed from her. They should have been able to move with her, and somebody should have been there to help her to, get on her feet and to survive it. So that's really what got me started on this, was seeing how the kids were treated. I had one boy that was with me. Um, he wasn't even allowed at the DSS office. He had posted something on social media and they took it as a threat. And so he wasn't allowed to even step foot at the office. I was completely unaware of this. And I took him with me to a meeting at the DSS office, not knowing. And as soon as we got there, we got swarmed with security. Why was I never informed? Why was I not told this? Obviously, they knew it.
Right.
And it's just wrong how certain things are done for our population of kids. And they're so misunderstood in our community. This is something that really, really breaks my heart, is how our community responds.
Maurita has walked with young adults through experiences that are incredibly difficult for everyone involved. She doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but she does know how important it is to try to give each of these young adults a chance.
I had a young man that was in my care that was in a gang, and he recently opted out of that gang. And the demeanor and just the interaction that we have with this young man is like night and day. When he first came into my home, he was so laden with anger. I have in my previous, we moved home since then, but I had stabbed walls from where he stabbed a knife in the wall. And I had to replace 3 doors in his bedroom because he had just damaged all the closet doors, the door getting into, he had damaged a lot. And now I can't even begin to tell you how I love just sitting and going for rides with him and chit chatting and talking. And he shares just about everything with me. And it just is amazing to see what being able to provide a loving, stable environment has done for him. And it's not because we were forcing anything. I was completely aware of the gang stuff. He was not aware that I was aware. I have ways of figuring things out. I'm a mom, right? Don't we all moms?
Okay. Right. Hopefully.
Yeah, but I had ways, and I took certain precautions and measures that I felt were necessary to protect my home. Um, but I didn't push him. I didn't pressure him. I didn't kick him out. I didn't do any of that kind of stuff. I just simply loved him, and he's gotten to this point now.
But that sounds like something that's pretty tough to do when you have someone with severe behaviors. Do you think there's some situations that are just the loving doesn't work as well?
I do think there are situations that happens for, unfortunately. This is raw because it's recent for me. But we just had to remove 2 young people from our home, and it was because of I love them with everything in me, and that's why it hurts so much, is because I've always wanted, I want what's best for them. And while I see that things have gotten better, they fight constantly. And when they fight, it affects the whole household. And they take it out on the whole household, even though it's just the two of them. So the tension and everything in the home. And I have tried and tried and tried to work on it. And while they've gotten better, like in the beginning when they first moved in with me, the arguments were, I had to call the police probably 3 times a week because they would get so
Wow.
contentious with each other. And one of them even, well, 2 of them got arrested, both of them got arrested one night because they started getting physical with the police officers. And but the police officers responded in the wrong way. Uh, I'll share that story a little bit really quick. The
Sure.
two of them had been arguing. They had gone outside. It was midnight and they were yelling up and down the street at each other. And my husband and I heard it. We went out, got the kids to come inside, got them completely settled down, talking it out, figuring out what our solution was going to be for the evening. And things were calm. Well, we get the knock on the door about 15, 20 minutes later, and it's the police officers. And they demanded that the two of them talk about what took place. They made one of them go outside and the other one stay inside. And then before we knew it, one of them was outside and you could hear the yelling between the individual and the police officers. They riled it back up. And it wasn't necessary for it to get riled back up. So I think sometimes police officers really need to understand how to handle mental health, how to handle these situations. If the family has gotten them calmed down, we don't have to go down the road of trying to figure out what was going on. It's obviously okay. However, in our home, it was getting to the point where um, it was really wearing on the mental health of everybody else in the home. And I had to call the police twice within a week. And the second time that I called, I told the two young adults that they needed to be out of the home. But the thing that kind of um, topped it, they just did not, they could not understand how their behavior was affecting everybody else in the home. They felt everybody else should be able to understand that they're going to have arguments and they're going to have fights, but they weren't willing to understand the other side of it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Am I making sense from that standpoint? They felt everybody needed to understand them, but yet they wouldn't understand everybody else.
Right. It sounds like they were in like their own heads and they're like, well, I
Mhm.
get it. Why don't you all get it?
Yeah,
Type of thing.
yeah.
Sure.
So we ended up plus, I mean, the police officers showed up and one of the girls was telling the police officers that I do like stuff that I don't like I don't feed her and I don't let her go to the bathroom and I
Oh
lock
my
her in her room.
goodness.
And I'm like, that is complete bogus. The police officer's like, well, are you forced to stay here? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, then leave if it's that bad. I'm like, well, they're leaving. Yeah. So I had to go the route. I had to go to court and do the whole process. It's the first time in 25 years that I've had to do that. Um, and it's been hard for me to let my guard down since then with just trying to relax and be like, okay, I don't have to worry about all of a sudden an argument breaking out. I can be peaceful. So
Right. But it seems like it sure takes a special person to navigate that. Foster parents are needed for all types of kids. Maurita offers some advice for foster parents who are just starting out. Do you run into people who are considering being foster parents and do you have advice? Do you recommend people do it or do you feel like you have this unique understanding, which you obviously do, but do you feel like this is an understanding that's widely available to people or do you think
I
it's
don't,
a special
Charlene. I
person?
really, I think that's something from the standpoint of even the training that we go through in order to become foster parents. It really doesn't prepare you for what's real. Because, I mean, the training that we go through was developed like in the 70s. So foster care has obviously changed quite a bit since then. And the young adults, the kids that we get into the system are much different from what they were. And so, I think that there's a few things that you need to understand. If you're really interested in being a foster parent, first and foremost, you need to understand that it's about reunification. That is our primary goal, is to reunify the kids with their parents. And that sometimes can be challenging because you hear stories about what parents have done and you want to protect the children that are in your care. You don't want to make them have to go back to that family because that family did so and so, but there's got to be a realization that they're going to parent different than you parent. Sometimes we might just need to teach them a little bit differently to parent, but it's really got to be about what's best for our child and reunification being the primary goal. I have a really awesome story there. So, my first time fostering full time. So, like I said, I started with doing respite. I got the call, Maurita, we've got 4 kids that we're needing a home for a few months that's
Wow.
willing to work on reunification with their mom. I'm like, okay. They're like, all 4 kids are under 6. Okay, okay. I'm single. I'm a single mom. I'm a single person with a full-time job at this point. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I get the 4 kids. I had them for about 8 months, and we reunified them with their mother successfully.
Wow.
This past April timeframe, I received a message on Facebook. Are you Maurita from Holly Springs? I'm like, yeah. Do you remember me? I was in your home 18 years ago. This is, and she told me, and I am like, oh my gosh, it was the oldest one
Wow.
of those 4 kids. She just had a birthday this week as well. She is now in New York City and has a psychiatry degree. Her
Wow.
sister is a designer. Her brother is an architect or in school to become an architect. And the youngest just graduated high school this year and they remained with their mother. So their mother's connected with me too. I'm so,
That's
so,
so
so excited.
wonderful.
And that's what it should be about. It should be about those successes and being able to say, "Great job, mom," and being able
Mhm.
to cheer her on. And so that's my first thing is it's about reunification.
Mhm.
Second, you really have to understand that the behaviors that are shown towards us as foster families, we cannot take it personal. There's so much wrapped up in the emotions of what's going on for them, and they're gonna take it out on people that they feel are safe. And quite often, you are the safe place that they find. And quite often, you're going to be the one that gets the verbal abuse. You're going to be the ones that get physical abuse. You're going to get all of that, and we just have to be geared up. I try my best. I've had my moments when I want to return my kids, but I get that. All right, you know what? If I birthed this kid out of my womb and they were acting this way, I wouldn't be like, send them back. I don't want them. And I really feel that we need to get that for the foster care system too. We need to have more resiliency and understanding the challenges that these kids have been through and how we can better support them, because all we're doing is causing more damage by tossing them back and forth and back and forth. So
Right.
those are my 2 big things: reunification and resiliency. You need to be resilient.
Well, one of my thoughts after, interacting with the foster care agency myself is just how much the social workers, the people in the agency don't have time. There's a ton of red tape. There's like it almost seems like it's built to not tune in to these needs that would really make a difference. It's built to believe kids are resilient. I heard social workers say that drove me so nuts because they would often use that as an excuse to, okay, let's move the kid, let's do this, let's do that. You're in this foster parent who's trying to be resilient, and the system is just not built for that. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you do?
Yeah, it's hard. It's so often we feel like our voices are lost as foster parents. The courts don't listen to us, social workers don't listen to us, and it can be very, very challenging, very challenging. But we just got to do what's best and trust.
Marita understands that not everyone is in a situation where they can offer young adults what she does. That's one reason why she wants to offer people a way they can help coach these young adults with whatever time or energy they have. Sounds like through, for example, this system you're thinking about where you follow through with the teens as they go out into adulthood. It sounds like that idea calls for a lot of people that don't have to be foster parents, but can play like a vital role in making sure these kids succeed. That sounds like an interesting prospect. And what would you tell people about coming alongside these older kids and maybe not being a foster parent?
Yeah, so there's different opportunities that you have. You do not have to be a licensed foster parent for a young adult to live in your home. So you could do that. You could have a young adult that comes and lives with you for a period of time. They rent a room or whatever. You could become part of one of our teams to help build solutions for the young adults, like I talked about. We want to come together and build teams around those areas to help build solutions for young adults. So you could be a team member on one of those
So you're
teams.
currently recruiting for that?
I am. Yes, I am recruiting for that. You can go to my website, inourshoesinc.org, and you can see the availability that I have for those teams.
Your organization, is that's the main purpose of it, is to develop these teams to
Mhm. Yes,
okay.
develop solutions for young adults, primarily housing. That's what we've been doing for the last, oh gosh, 13, 14 years, is just providing housing for them in our home. When I first started, I wanted this campus. I was like going to be this mighty woman. I was going to have a campus with 100 kids on it. But I realized that they really want normalcy. They really want to be more ingrained in the community and feel like they're normal and that they just have that natural environment.
Do you have any other thoughts you want to make sure I hear from you, or any other things you really want people within and outside of foster care to know about older teens, and even even some ideas about how to inform society about better ways of
Mm-hmm.
looking at them?
Well, if you have opportunities where I could come and speak to an organization, whether it be a school, whether it be a civic organization, church, anything like that, please reach out to me. I'd love to come and share my heart and share just how we can make a better impact on this population of young adults. And then I just want to talk to the foster mom, to the foster dad that's out there that's really struggling right now. And just know that you're making a difference. You are making a difference in the lives of these kids. Sometimes it's not apparent at all while they're in our homes. Sometimes that becomes more apparent down the line. And they're struggling and putting up with the stuff that you just don't know what to do with and you feel defeated, but don't be defeated. You are strong, you're amazing, and keep on keeping on.
Too many young adults coming out of foster care don't have the help and support they need. To find out more about Maurita's work and her story, find links to all of this on my website, adoptionuncovered.com. And thank you.